Hi, my name is Andrea Capere, and you're watching Mission Nonprofit. Each month, we connect with local organizations and agencies that are making a positive impact in our communities. August is Water Quality Month, and to discuss this topic, we've invited Emily McCartan and Sheila Wilson, representatives from the Nisqually River Foundation, to talk about their work in preserving our natural resources. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Okay, well tell us more about the Nisqually River Foundation.
The foundation is a group that supports the work of a lot of different organizations. One of our primary functions is we support the Nisqually River Council, which is an interagency body of about 24 agencies, state, local, federal, and tribal governments, and then a citizen group that work around the mission of preserving the Nisqually watershed and its natural resources for many years to come. So through the foundation, we support that work. We partner with a lot of those agencies to run volunteer programs and stewardship activities, and we have an education program that serves schools in the area.
So is it mostly government, or do you work with tribal nations? Do you work with nonprofits?
What other communities do you work?
Okay.
The Nisqually River Council works with local counties, local jurisdictions, conservation districts, the Nisqually Indian Tribe, Mount Rainier National Park, and the Billy Frank Jr. Nisqually National Wildlife Refuge, to name a few.
And one of our big public outreach programs is called Nisqually Stream Stewards, and that involves members of the community from mostly around the South Sound area. The foundation runs it in partnership with the Nisqually Indian Tribe, and people talk about it like a backstage pass to the watershed, so it gives folks a glimpse into all of the agencies that are supporting things like salmon recovery and habitat restoration and citizen science initiatives from Mount Rainier down to the Delta. Folks get to come in, see the folks who work on those initiatives, and then become part of volunteer efforts to help out with those projects year round.
So that sounds like a huge body of work.
We stay busy.
Yeah, we do.
So what are you excited about right now in your work?
The Nisqually Stream Stewards is going to start on Thursday, August 2nd, and that is our 8-week-long free course that's open to the public. We meet on Thursday evenings, and we have 5 Saturday field trips, and we get to, like Emily said, meet a lot of the folks in the watershed who are doing the work to make it more sustainable, so people in the general public can get a taste of what it's like to be a citizen scientist.
Fantastic. And you were talking about the Nisqually Stream Stewards, and that's just one of those programs within the foundation and the council.
Yep.
Tell us more about some of those other programs that you have, maybe some of those educational programs.
Yeah, the Nisqually River Education Project has been going for 26 years. It started as a water quality monitoring program. We currently have a network of about 45 teachers that bring over 1,000 students out twice a year to monitor the local streams and rivers in their communities. So they then take those results to a student congress where they share their findings with other students and also do some fun hands-on workshops and make recommendations to improve water quality. That's kind of the core of that education project. It's grown since the beginning, so now we also do habitat restoration in riparian areas along creeks and rivers to make the waters healthier for salmon and other wildlife. We also do a salmon tossing program where the students return the nutrients from the salmon carcasses back into the upper watershed that would have been a waste product from the hatchery. We do wildlife monitoring at the wildlife refuge, trips to Puget Sound beaches to learn what's happening out there and how students can be stewards of that habitat as well.
The education project is one of the big ways that we partner with other organizations. So the foundation is we're a pretty small organization by ourselves, but we work really closely with the Nisqually Indian Tribe, with the federal agencies at the refuge and Mount Rainier National Park, with other nonprofits like the Nisqually Land Trust, the Nisqually Reach Nature Center. What else am I? There's going to be some partner who's like, you didn't talk about us. I'll probably come back to it.
Did you say South Sound Green?
The South Sound Green, which works in the Deschutes watershed and does education outreach. So we, the county conservation districts and health departments who work on environmental health are also, they offer resources to community members. They offer volunteer opportunities for people who want to get involved. And one of our roles is to kind of funnel volunteers off to those opportunities. So we have folks this week who participate in the Stream Stewards program with us, who are going to be helping the Nisqually Land Trust restore a property up on Ohop Creek, which is one of our tributaries. That was a place that had been really heavily farmed since the 1800s, and over the last 10, 15 years or so, the Land Trust and the tribe have purchased quite a bit of that land back, have restored the creek to a more natural state, and then with the help of volunteers are trying to control invasive species and replant it with natural trees so that it's better salmon habitat. And over the last couple of years, they've started to see steelhead and other species of salmon back in that creek, which is a really fantastic thing. That's another thing we have volunteers do, is go out to creeks around the Nisqually watershed during salmon spawning season and monitor for a couple, a half hour, 15 minutes, a couple times a week. And that's one of our citizen science things, but that data feeds back into the work that the tribe's Natural Resources Department does to try to monitor where those species are and how they're recovering.
No wonder that you stay busy.
Yes.
Well, I think we have some video of what it looks like behind the scenes, so let's take a look at that.
Hi, my name's Emily McCartan, and we're here by the Nisqually River at the Washington State Department of Fish and Wildlife's 6th Avenue Water Access Site, and we're doing water quality testing.
And my name is Amber Left Hand Bull, and I'm here to assist.
So we are doing part of our water quality testing today, and we are putting on gloves and eye protection because the chemicals can be a little bit toxic. But these are tests that we do with kids in our education program. So students between the ages of 9 and 10 and up through high school do these tests twice a year at sites around the watershed, which helps them learn about the way scientists monitor water quality, how that affects salmon and other species that live in the river, and that all ties into their science learning and how they see themselves as stewards of the environment and our natural resources. So the test we're going to do right now is called dissolved oxygen, and that tells us how much oxygen in parts per million or milligrams per liter is dissolved in the water, which is a really important indicator for salmon and other species. So we filled up our sample bottles in the river, and you uncap them underwater so that they are filled completely with river water. You hold them in the middle of the flow, so you try not to get any atmospheric oxygen in there. You're just getting the samples from the. And now we're going to uncap it, and we're going to add 8 drops of manganese sulfate solution.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
And then 8 drops of alkaline potassium iodide.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ooh, we're getting close.
And then we're going to cap it, and we're going to invert it a couple of times. It might spill over, that's okay. That's why you're wearing gloves.
Yeah. So you see the color is changing.
Mm-hmm. And it creates this cool yellow precipitate, which will settle out of the bottle eventually. So we're going to sit and let it settle for just a few minutes. So now we're going to add 8 drops of sulfuric acid. So don't drink this one.
Don't drop it in either. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can see it changing already.
And then we're going to shake it until the precipitate totally dissolves. It should look like apple juice. The kids really like that part.
1, 2. All right. So you see it's looking a lot more clear.
Yeah, keep going a little bit, I think.
But not as cloudy for sure.
So now we're going to put 20 milliliters in here right up to this line, and that gives us a precise amount. So,
Oops. Okay. I'm just about there. And I would say that's, yep, 20 milliliters. 8 drops of starch. Oh, it's not coming out. 1.
and so that cool color change, is there enough in there?
Oh yeah, there is. It's just like 1,
The cool color change,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, pretty close.
That's okay.
Okay. And the cool color change.
We're gonna swirl that a little bit because this color change is what's gonna help us tell how much for the very last part. We're gonna add in sodium thiosulfate, one tiny drop at a time through what's called a titrator. And that's gonna tell us how much dissolved oxygen is in there.
1 unit, 2, 3, 4, 5. Keep adding more.
Yeah. It's gonna start to get
6,
lighter.
7.
And that's when we're gonna slow. Okay,
8.
now I say slow down. We're gonna go 1 drop at a time.
And you're swirling between each drop.
And we're gonna swirl a little bit.
There we go.
Getting
Keep swirling.
close.
Keep swirling. Sorry. Got to mix it really well.
1, 2.
That looks like it.
All right.
Okay. Wait, maybe one more?
Probably. 3.
Yeah. That looks pretty clear. And then we read on our titrator.
5.
So we read the measurement from the bottom of this green ring, and that tells us the amount of dissolved oxygen, which is 7.5 milligrams per liter.
Which would we record on
Which
our deck
is
sheet.
we would record on our data sheet, and that's pretty close to what we want to see. Ideal for salmon is at 9. So students test the water and do 8 different tests on 8 different indicators, and we do dissolved oxygen and temperature together. So the student data that's been collected right here at this site on the Nisqually over the last 20 years comes up with this graph that looks like this. And you can see a correlation where the yellow bars are temperature and the blue line is the dissolved oxygen. You can see correlations when temperature is lower, the dissolved oxygen levels tend to be higher because colder water tends to hold more oxygen and is healthier for salmon and other aquatic species.
Yeah. And the bottom is just showing the different dates and the seasons.
The yellow line is the maximum temperature that we want to see to make the river an ideal habitat for salmon, and the blue line is the minimum amount of dissolved oxygen that we hope to see.
So tell us more about the Nisqually Stream Stewards and their work.
So the Stream Stewards program officially involves about 40 hours of classes that people can sign up for over the summer. We bring in folks who are experts. We bring in biologists from the Nisqually tribe, from the refuge. We go up to Mount Rainier and tour with rangers and talk about glaciers and hydrology. We get to go out and visit some of the stream areas that are being restored and talk about habitat projects. We visit hatcheries, we visit community gardens, and talk really all about the many different components that go into a healthy watershed. And in exchange for that 40 hours of class time and field trips and experiences, we ask those stream steward volunteers to commit their volunteer time and an equivalent amount, so about 40 hours over the next year, to the organizations that are doing that work. So our goal is that people understand the team effort that it takes to create a healthy water system and a healthy environment, and then figure out how they can be part of that team. And the volunteer opportunities can be everything from helping support the education project and going out and helping classes who are doing field trips, to going out and tossing salmon in the upper watershed in the winter. We'll give you a big tote full of frozen salmon. We hack the tails off, and then you get to toss them in the river and watch bald eagles kind of circle around being like, oh, that looks like lunch to me, which is all part of kind of restoring the natural food chain that would have been there when salmon could come that far up the river on their own. You have opportunities to help out with surveying for forage fish and species of water birds down at the Nisqually Delta, opportunities to volunteer at the Nisqually the Billy Frank Jr. Nisqually National Wildlife Refuge. So there's desk opportunities, there's field opportunities, there's chances to go tag invasive species, there's ways to kind of improve your practice in your own home that we want folks to feel like they have a place that they can say, I'm doing something to help make this part of the world that I live in sustainable and healthy for a long time to come. So we're really, it's a huge partnership effort because we want all of the folks who come in to present during Stream Stewards are our partners from the many different organizations and government agencies that are working in the watershed, and then they're the ones who get the benefit of working with our Stream Stewards volunteers through the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any big wins lately? Some big achievements that you can talk about in your work?
This year was our biggest ever year for the education project in a couple of ways. We had over 500 students from around the region participate in Student Green Congress, and they represented classes from around the community. So that number of kids that are all coming out with sort of an understanding and a feeling of ownership and stewardship is really powerful. The Nisqually River Council, which is that interagency group, is always working to kind of recruit new community participation, and we're in the midst of a big strategic planning initiative to identify the goals that we really want to work on for the coming years. And again, that's something that brings together a bunch of different agencies to figure out how to drive forward on these missions.
And what are some tips that you can share with our viewers about how to keep our watersheds healthy?
I think one of the most important things we can all do right now is focus on how we are affecting the climate. And every little thing we're doing adds up and makes a difference. And until we all figure that out, it's not going to get any better. So being at a glacier-sourced river, that's something that's always on our mind. And then there's it's all pretty much simple little things you can do, like picking up after your dog, taking your car to a commercial car wash, not letting that soapy water get down into those storm drains, which generally lead straight to our waterways.
Trying to monitor the amount of plastics and waste that you create, things like buying and eating local foods that are grown here in the watershed. We have a couple of really great business partners that are doing sustainable production. So any ways that you can, within your budget and your life, make those adjustments that are a little bit more conscious of the impact that you have. We do a really fun activity with some of the students in the program where we have a model of a watershed with little tiny houses and little tiny roads and cars, and they get all kinds of different inputs. So they get to sprinkle soy sauce around for oil that's dripping from cars that haven't been maintained, and they get to pour dish soap on for cars that are being washed in driveway, and they get to put chocolate sprinkles on for dog waste. And then at the end,
delicious.
Right, it's a lovely cocktail. At the end, they all get a squirt bottle full of water, and they get to make it rain over this little tiny watershed. And then at the end, you look into what's collected in the Puget Sound part of the model, and all of a sudden you're like, that looks so good. So it's a good illustration of the ways, and I think they leave thinking about all of the little tiny things that they can do.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a great time of year to think about gardening with native plants. Mm-hmm. They require less fertilizer input and need less water this time of year, and we're all feeling the heat, and bringing those beautiful things into your yard can provide food for wildlife as well, and make your yard a little piece of habitat, which is a fun thing to do.
We live in a pretty environmentally conscious part of the country and part of the state. Are there some surprising facts about conserving our natural resources or preserving those areas that you can think of?
Surprising. I think someone who's sort of new to this particular field, thinking about the ways that the amount of snow that we get over the winter doesn't just affect what Mount Rainier looks like on the horizon and what the sort of skiing conditions are like over the winter, but that affects how much water is available in our rivers later on when salmon are going to try to come upstream to spawn. And that the whole sort of cycle and process, that as the water level gets lower, not only is it harder for the species that live there to live, but the water gets warmer, and that's also bad for those species. So the ways that all of those systems kind of interact and has certainly made me more conscious of the way that that I think about my footprint and my impact on how my life is affecting all of those different things that I see on a daily basis. We're really, like you said, we're really lucky in our region, and I think in the Nisqually in particular, to have such a strong community of people who have been committed for a really long time to preserving this place, from the folks who back in the 60s made sure that the Nisqually Delta could be preserved as a wildlife refuge instead of developed into a port, to the folks who in the last 10 years really pushed to get that estuary restored to its natural state. It's now, we've restored almost 1,000 acres of it, and it's habitat for not just salmon from our watershed, but from salmon from all over South Puget Sound, meaning that it's become one of the kind of linchpins as we look at recovering that endangered species and the species that rely on them, like orca whales, that those, having so many people around supporting that work is really, really important, and being part of one of the most unspoiled watersheds in the state is really special.
There's a lot of optimism there.
Yeah. They say we're the only watershed that has its headwaters in a national park and the mouth at the National Wildlife Refuge. So those are two really strong partnerships. I think another surprise is that Joint Base Lewis McChord is actually a very strong partner.
They are.
They're really committed to preserving habitat and to having zero waste systems on base, which most people don't know. And I think most people
They do
also
a lot of
don't
really
know
great
that.
work.
Yeah, we have 2 threatened species in Puget Sound of salmon. So the Chinook and the steelhead are both really doing pretty abysmally. And the school kids really can rally around that. They get a real concrete example of something that they can help make their lives better and hopefully bring those back to their once amazing numbers. They used to say, of course, like you could walk across the river without getting your feet wet on the back of the salmon. Of course, that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but it puts a picture in your mind that the kids, they get that, and they get excited about making a difference.
And before we started rolling, we talked about how much in love you both are with this work. Can you share with me why it's so impactful for each of you?
It feels great to do something every day that you know makes a little bit of a difference, and just kind of taking the information that we're lucky enough to get straight from the source of real scientists that are really on the front lines of these recovery efforts, and show people how they can be a part of it and make it a part of their lives in pretty simple, straightforward ways.
I would agree. I think being part of, just like Sheila said, kind of being the conduit that helps communicate about science and restoration and all of that important work to the community, having a community that's receptive to it, and having good kind of dialogue and partnerships throughout, just being able to see and be part of something that, even though the battle feels like it's uphill some of the time, you also feel like you are making a difference, and you get to see people kind of come away going like, whoa, okay, I get it, and I'm going to be involved. It's really special.
Very rewarding.
Very.
So, sorry. Okay, we'll start over again. So what can our community do to support your work?
Well, funny you should ask. We actually have a PayPal button right on our website, which is nisquallyriver.org. We would love to see a few more folks sign up for Stream Stewards. There's still room on that. At the same website, you can find a place to register online for that. We have an event at the end of September called the Nisqually Watershed Festival. It'll be its 29th year. It is on September 29th at the Nisqually Billy Frank Jr., Nisqually National Wildlife Refuge. And it's a great hands-on day with arts and crafts all related to our local environment, salmon bake and nature walks and entertainment with live animal acts, and a lot of partner agencies that come with information about how people can get involved and make a difference in their own lives. There's also an insect exploratorium. People come with live beehives and insect collections and water insects to look at. A salmon dissection will probably happen. We have storytellers from Mount Rainier.
You can make a salmon print shirt. You use the salmon as the stamp. That's a huge Pacific Northwest tradition.
Like an actual salmon?
Real, not live, it's dead at the time, but a real salmon that you use to make a salmon print. They come out looking real cool.
And the smell washes out, which is
It
really
does.
handy.
I've given dinner napkins with salmon prints on them to a number of friends for Christmas this year, and they're like, what do you do again? This is really cool. It's a great way to sort of spread your love of the Nisqually. And then we also have volunteer opportunities year-round, whether you do Stream Stewards or not. You can check our Facebook page for the Nisqually Stream Stewards or the Nisqually River Council for lots of opportunities to get involved, whether you want to go pull weeds, whether you want to plant trees, whether you want to go on a field trip, whether you want to go count stream bugs in a microscope. We have lots and lots of different ways that folks can come be involved.
And so with just a few minutes left, I know we talked a little bit about that September 29th event, but do you have any other campaigns or events that you're working on in the future that we should be made aware of?
We have an annual fundraising drive around the holidays, like lots and lots of places, so keep an eye out for that. And then the Watershed Festival, which is just really, we want to plug again, it's our great opportunity to get to know many of the organizations that are working in the watershed. And if you can and you're interested, sign up for Stream Stewards. It starts August 2nd.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank both of you for coming and talking.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
That's all we have for you. You can see Mission Nonprofit on Channel 77 on Sundays at 4:30 p.m., Tuesdays at 7 p.m., Thursdays at 7:30 p.m., and Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. You can also catch us online at tcmedia.org. See you next time.